Right now, there's 37 states that have some form of legal cannabis. And for any of you math wizards out there, yes, that's just under 75% of the United States that has legal cannabis. But which states do you think have the most amount of dispensaries? There's medical and recreational dispensaries. But which states do you think have the most dispensaries? Because medical cannabis has been legal since the 90s. I just looked this up earlier. And there's a total of 6 states that legalized medical cannabis before the year 2000. But nowadays, we have a lot of states that have dispensaries. But which states do you think have the most of them? Because the answer might be surprising for some of you. Now, before I get into it, years ago, I looked up every dispensary in Colorado. I was trying to get in the business of selling like dabbing accessories and stuff. And my first target was I wanted to sell it at dispensaries because while they sold the stuff to smoke, they also sold the stuff to smoke it with. And I was like, you know what? Some of these places seem like they don't have really good stuff in here for sale. Let me see if I can get some products in here. So what I had to do was like compile a big list of every dispensary in Colorado. I looked up all the medical shops, all the recreational shops, and I had a big long spreadsheet of all the dispensaries. And at the time, it was like 500 something dispensaries. And that was just the ones that I could find online, that I could find through like Google and Weed Maps and stuff like that. Some of them existed, but they didn't necessarily have a presence on the internet yet. So it's kind of hard to get an exact number of how many dispensaries there are. Things open and close every day. And the most recent data that I could find is a survey from August 2021. But it looks like they just published it a couple of months ago, so we now have the data. But real quick, before I show you, I just want you to guess what you think is the state with the most dispensaries. Which state do you think has the most? You know what? Go ahead and just think of the top 5 really quick. Just think of the top 5 before I show you, because we're going to look at the whole list. What did you put at the top of the list? I think a lot of people would think it was California. Did you guess Oklahoma? It's kind of wild to me that Oklahoma is on the top of the list here by far, because they didn't legalize until 2018. And it was like an across the board, everybody can get medical cannabis. It's super cheap to get in the business over there. It's one of the cheaper states. In fact, when I lived in Colorado, I heard of a lot of people picking up and moving their entire cannabis business to Oklahoma because it was so much cheaper there to get started and maintain their business. And it looks like a lot of people went. There's over 2,300 dispensary licenses. Now, a license doesn't necessarily mean that there's a dispensary there for it, but it gives us an idea. And yeah, this information is from about a year and a half ago, but I would say most of these states, you could just add a little bit onto the number and that this data is pretty close for the most part. Maybe the order of like Oregon and California and Colorado could be swapped around a little bit because they're all pretty close. But the point is to show you how many dispensaries there are in Oklahoma. There is so many. It's one of the cheapest places to get into the business. There's tons and tons of options over there for dispos. They're one of the few states that allow out-of-state medical cards. You can bring your card there from other states and then do a little bit of paperwork and get a medical card and shop in Oklahoma. They don't have recreational sales there yet, but when they do, oh my God, I feel like Oklahoma is going to be like a major hotspot. I've heard of a lot of people saying, because there's so many options there, and this is true for a lot of states, when you have so many options for dispensaries, the price just goes way down. And because there's so many licensed dispensaries over there, they're not necessarily selling everything to everybody in Oklahoma. A lot of this stuff could make it out of state, and people are like, nah, bro, it's definitely from Cali. But how many people out there do you think are smoking on that flower that's definitely from Cali? Their plug definitely got it from Cali, and it's from Oklahoma. There's probably a lot. But let's take a more in-depth look, because there's some interesting stuff on here. The top 5 is pretty laid out. Most of you probably could have guessed. Colorado, California, Oregon, Michigan, Washington is up there. Florida isn't too far behind. Shoot, we might have 420 dispensaries here soon. And I just wanted to take a quick glance at this to show you the states that legalized first. California legalized med in 96, Alaska 98, Nevada 98, Oregon 98, Washington 98, Maine 98. I knew Colorado was in 2000, but I didn't realize that 6 states had legalized medical cannabis before Colorado. But not all these 6 states are in the top. It's so wild though, because Oklahoma's way down here. They didn't legalize until 2018, and they have the most by far. But Alaska way down here. I mean, I don't know how many people are in Alaska. Some of these might be affected by just the amount of people that are there. Even though Oklahoma is not one of the higher populated states, they got the bud there. But let's look a little further down the list. These are licenses, so that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be that many storefronts there. And this data is from like a year and a half ago. So I don't know if there's anything current. I looked around to see if there was anything that was published. This was published in 2023, but I was looking to see if there was any surveys from 2023. But I could imagine it's hard to get the exact numbers. Because I saw Texas at the bottom with 3, and I'm like, there's 3 dispos in Texas? Or is it just 3 licenses, and whenever they're actually allowed to open up shop, they will? Because when you have each state decide how they legalize, you just get wildly different results. Like Oklahoma, I've heard it's so cheap to start a business in Oklahoma. That's why there's so many. It's so cheap to get into it, and it's not limited. Some other states have like weird limitations, like Florida only allows so many people to have the licenses, and the licenses cost a crazy amount of money. But Oklahoma's like, hey, you want to grow some flower? Come on down, we'll let you. So while there's no way to track the exact number of dispensaries that are currently around, it is interesting to look at that data from not too long ago and just see the sheer volume of dispos in Oklahoma. Like, I knew there was a lot. It has almost 3 times the amount as number 2 on the list. Like, think about that. There's so many shops there. I could imagine if they legalized recreational in Oklahoma, that would be one of the hot spots for like 420 events and brands. Anybody that's like looking to do anything huge, because there's so much flower there. There's so many dispos there. There's so many growers. There's so many extractors. There's so much going down in Oklahoma. But let me know what you think. How do you think these numbers will look in the next 5 or 10 years? We have 74% of the states with legal cannabis. Do you think we're going to be at 100% soon? Either way, come get high with me on Twitch. I do a smoke sesh every night at 9 p.m. Eastern. Link your Amazon Prime, and you can give me some dispensary funding. And if you want to know what it's like to work at a dispensary, well, I thought dispensary jobs were the worst. Check out this video right here. Have a lit day, my dudes.